everyone. Welcome back to Life and Sport podcast. And we're joined by a very special guest. I say that every episode, but this doesn't make it any less true. He's played for the Australian Kelpies and also most recently, Fast Fives World Championships over in New Zealand. Anyone that may not know who the Kelpies are, they're actually the Australian national men's netball team. And so I'm joined by Liam. I'm probably going to butcher it, Killey. Thank you for joining me today, mate. And how's your day going so far?
Yeah, day's going well so far. Thanks so much for having me.
Nah, pleasure's all mine. So, obviously, my first question for every guest, no matter what sport they're in currently, is what's your earliest sporting memory?
Oh, I think I've got two that sort of come to mind
Mm-hmm.
when you say that. Like, I think just like playing Auskick, I think it was definitely, I think every, Victorian, country lad especially, just running around like with a bunch of mates, like, 5, 6 years old, just kicking up those like tiny little,
Tiny little yellow
footies and that
footies.
sort of, oh, yeah. But there's probably not a single memory that sticks out with that. But I think the other one that's like away from sport that's still involved with sport. Mum's a Sydney supporter and dad's a Essendon supporter.
And who do you
Um,
support?
well, I was Sydney
Mm-hmm.
for a little while. Mum got in early. She did the hard yards, and then I think
Okay.
one day dad locked me outside of the house and wouldn't let me back in until I said I went for Essendon.
I'm a Collingwood
So,
fan. Don't hate me.
oh no, that's all right. We can
It
move
could be
past it
Carlton.
today.
It could be Carlton.
Yeah,
It could be
exactly
worse.
right. Exactly right.
No, that's awesome. Obviously that goes into my next question because as you mentioned, Auskick. What other sports other than Auskick did you grow up playing?
So it's probably the three main ones I grew up playing was like started with like AFL footy.
Yep.
Played a few years of that. I finished up that when I was about 15, 16. Just obviously like moving into year 11, year 12 at school. Mum was like, "Oh, you can only choose one sport."
Yeah,
A lot of
okay, fair.
basketball. A lot of basketball. That's probably the main one that I stuck with. Obviously before netball career sort of took off, and then
Yep.
played a fair bit of tennis and stuff growing up as well. So that was
Okay.
mainly just doubles and just local around like Garbock and Lang and Panmure and that sort of stuff where I grew up in Southwest Victoria.
Yeah, nice. Okay. And basketball, just for tangenting quickly, obviously you've got a background in basketball. Is that what sort of led you into netball? And if not, what drew you to netball?
Um, like basketball, yeah, like sort of played for the Warrnambool Seahawks and stuff in juniors, and then was lucky enough to sort of play for the the Div One men's team. Growing up from 16 till 19 when I moved up to Melbourne. And yeah, sort of came into a state champ men team there when I was 19 and moved into Seabull and NBL one there for a few years. And when you play a sport for your whole life, like you're always looking for like that's something new and something a bit different. And
Yep.
netball was probably that thing where I just started socially, just filling in for a friend's team, like a mixed team on a Sunday night at Burundara in Melbourne, and
Hmm.
yeah, that eventually sort of led to like we won that league, and then we went to play the M League, which is like the men's and mixed netball league
Hmm.
down at Parkville, and then yeah, we won the Div One mixed title, and then went up to the Prem, and that's when I was like, oh, okay, this is a big step up. This is a bit different.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
And how'd you go there?
yeah, well, we started off really well, and then yeah, I think teams figured out how to play us quite quickly, and I think we either just made finals or just missed out of finals.
Yep.
But
And
yeah,
how
like in
how far
amongst
how long ago was this, by the way, if you don't mind me asking?
it would have been like 2022, I think that Div
Okay,
One or
so
that
so
Prem
so
season would have been.
recently.
Yeah, like very recently. Like it's been a real rapid rise for me to netball for sure. It's after that I got convinced to try out for the state team.
Hmm.
And I was adamant I was going to play mixed. I was not going to play men's at all. And then Guy Keane, who was the coach at the time, I reckon he called me 13 times that week and was like, "Look, mate, like I'm not taking no for an answer. You're playing men's." And made the Resi's team 2023, where that was held in Perth in April.
Hmm.
We ended up winning that. Didn't lose a game that week. And then yeah, obviously had that off season. Was still playing basketball at that point. And then yeah, like late last year, early this year, I made the Opens team for Vic.
Okay.
And that was in Brisbane this year. And same sort of thing. We went through the week undefeated, which was awesome. It's the first time that Vic had won the title in 6 or 7 years. And then, yeah, lucky enough to be called up into the Kelpie selection camp after that. So,
Well, yeah. After that was the Constellation Cup, if I'm not mistaken, was your call up for the Kelpies. That was anyone that's listening. It was at least this year's version of it was 4 games in Australia and New Zealand, uh, being played by Australia and New Zealand. Um, and what an absolute routing the Kelpies did, include such as yourself, against New Zealand. Not only winning all 4 games with a whitewash, but I'm just going to read some stats real quick. The scores: Game 1, 84-34. Game 2, 75-30. Game 3, 78-36. And Game 4, 71-39, which is incredible given you yourself had only really picked up a netball, maybe 2, 3 years ago max, and you've gone on to do this sort of damage against New Zealand. And another thing, just before I get into my next question, is that says so much, especially because I was talking to another a fellow Kelpie, like one of your teammates, and he said that New Zealand have only beaten Australia once in recorded history so far, and that's testament to the talent pool, the skill, the training, the efforts that everyone involved, from staff and admin to the players on the court of Australian netball for men's, and that's incredible. So my next question that's sort of into this is, how was that for you getting that Kelpies call up and then going on to win 4 games in a row for Australia against New Zealand?
Oh, to be part of any Australian team, like it's an absolute honour. And like not knowing much about the history of netball or the Kelpie space and that sort of stuff, like just to come in and be taught all about the history. Like we had Chris Carroll come in and do a chat, and he's Kelpie number 25. So
Yeah, wow.
he's from he played a lot in the 90s and the early 2000s and that sort of stuff. And to hear his story and what he went through and that sort of thing, like just to actually hear that firsthand in that space was like an absolute honor and a like privilege. I think every Australian kid that grows up playing sport, they always dream and want to play for their country at some point. And I mean, for it to be netball for me, like it would have been, you had to told me that 3 years ago, I probably would have laughed at you and just said, no, there's no chance. But here we are now.
That's incredible. And tanging into your next experiences playing for Australia, though, not the Kelpies, Australia in particular, was the Fast Fives. So, my questions, first of all, for anyone that's listening, you can obviously answer it as much better than I can. What is the Fast Fives, its format, and its differences compared to regular netball?
Yeah. So Fast Five is a tournament held by World Netball.
Mm-hmm.
So it runs over a weekend and the location changes every 3 years. So the last three
Okay.
years have been held in Christchurch.
Yep.
Um, the men's space has only been there for the Christchurch years, so the last 3 years that men have
Okay.
actually played in Fast Five. And yeah, it's the first year that Australia's actually ever won a Fast Five tournament this year. So
Wow.
that
Congratulations.
was no, thank you. It was it was awesome. So yeah, a little bit different. So obviously, normal netball, you've got your 7 positions. In Fast Five, there's no wing attack or no wing defense. So
Okay.
quarters, instead of being 15 minutes, they're 6 minutes.
Okay.
And then you also have a 2 point line and a 3 point line in this as
Okay.
well. So in the last 2 minutes of each quarter, the 2 pointers become 4 pointers and the 3 pointers become 6 pointers. So it is a very high intensity. You can have a 10 goal lead and all of a sudden they hit a couple of shots and you're down. So like
Yeah.
yeah, it's just go, go, go.
Wow. That's it, no pun intended or anything, but it is really fast. Like, it
Yeah.
seems like it speeds up the game compared to the regular format. And how did you make that adjustment from, regular competition to the Fast Fives?
Oh, look, I think even after the weekend, I'm still trying to learn the rules and understand how it's played and things like that. But for me, like my role in that space, like, shoot
Your
the
goal
occasional two
shooter,
and
if
that
I'm
sort
not
of
mistaken.
yeah, goal shooter. So, but for me, it was just keeping the scoreboard ticking over. Rebounds, if we do turn the ball over, just have, long arms in defense to make the passes a bit hard to give our mid quarters and defense the best opportunity to get an intercept.
Yep.
But yeah, like you can strategize as much as you want, but as soon as you get out there, it is just chaos. Like it
Yeah.
is, it's just
Yep.
pure entertainment for the crowd and that sort of stuff.
Yep, absolutely, and perfect ending to that answer to that question, because my next question is obviously the elephant in the room, the
Yeah.
pre-game each in the Fast Fives in particular. For anyone that doesn't know, pre-game each side is actually, you could say, mandated to do a sportainment sort of dance. And obviously, you and the rest of the Aussie side chose "Bye Bye Bye" by NSYNC, which is phenomenal, and not just by NSYNC. It was a rendition of the Deadpool Wolverine movie, from what we're led to believe from Liam Forcadilla, and it made headlines. First of all, what are your thoughts on making the headlines, and how was the choreography for it? How did it go? How was the planning for it all as well?
Yeah, so the choreography, I think on the way over, on the flight over to New Zealand, I think Draven actually watched Deadpool versus Wolverine. And I think that's
Okay.
where he got his inspiration from. He's like,
Oh, so
yep,
it
like
was his idea to do.
let's,
Let's do this. Okay,
yeah, I think we are originally going to do the cha cha slide,
that would have been cool.
just like bring it back. Yeah, it would have been pretty sick as well. But I think Draven pulled rank at that point and, just said, let's actually sort of do something a bit more fun with it and, something the crowd would love. And yeah, I just don't think, obviously, that how much it's blown up is, it's overwhelmingly positive. Like, I think most media outlets are sort of, quite impressed with it and that sort of stuff. With anything that goes viral, there's always going to be negativity to it. And, for us in the men's netball space, like, we are just trying to grow the brand and build up our game and that sort of thing at the moment. So, it's just, you just take the good with the bad, I suppose.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. And like water off a duck's back sort of thing, given the amount of positivity has been overwhelming, as in the amount of it as well. So yeah, as a person looking in and watching it, it was incredible to see. It was great scenes, and the choreography was given, as you said, it was just on the flight over there was the sort of thing, the idea from Draven. Um, to get that choreography more or less spot on in that short time. Incredible efforts from you and the team. And off the back of that, men's netball is still more or less self-funded by the players, at least in Australia. What do you think needs to happen or change in order for the profile of men's netball in Australia to progress to the next step?
I think it's sponsorships and that sort of stuff is a main sort of thing that needs to come in. Like, obviously, be great if like World Netball would sort of recognise men's netball as part of the program and that sort of stuff. Like all our games, like for the Kelpies and stuff, are streamed on Foxtel or KO for the last 3 years, which has been great. And obviously, Fast Five on Seven Plus. So we're getting the exposure out there and that sort of stuff. It'd be nice to have more mainstream media outlets sort of reaching out before these things happen and sort of drive some awareness around it so more people tune in and watch and
Rather than
like
say someone getting onto KO thinking, oh, there's no footy on, what can I watch? And then they just stumble upon it on KO sort of thing. Then you'd rather see
yeah
the advertisement of it as well.
yeah just like even Seven or something like that, just being like, oh, and the Kelpies are about to start their like international campaign, Trans
Yep.
Tasman Cup or Con Cup against New Zealand. These days, I think just awareness around the game and that sort of stuff. Because like, the platform we have now after this dance is amazing, but it's at the end of our international campaign now.
Which
So
is unfortunate, yeah.
yeah. So it would have been nice if this was slightly before the all the Kelpie stuff. But hey, like, I think just actually have this opportunity now to sort of grow the brand how we can. And then, next year, obviously, let's hope we can sort of pump it up a little bit more before we start the tour again.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, you've definitely got a fan in myself, and I'll definitely be posting, week before the games when the team lists are announced. So definitely I'll try my best to help out with that as well. So we've got some fun questions. Before we get to our fast five questions, that's not actually a pun because of the fast fives. I've always included these. It just happens that it's called fast five. But the questions before that, obviously, who's the funniest teammate?
Oh, look, in the Victorian space, I think it would be Riley Richardson or Jake Noonan. I think
Yep.
they're just very much like my sort of humor, just like bit silly, bit out there, that sort of thing. In the Oz space, I'm very, very hesitant to say this because it's going to go straight to his head, but Dre is probably the funniest
Okay.
in the Oz space
Okay.
for sure. Yeah.
Okay, fair. And in that same vein, who's the team pest?
Oh, look, it's honestly, it's probably me in both teams. To be honest, I think like, I think all the boys will, yeah, agree with me on that. It's just
Well, I
I
was going
do
to say,
like
you know
to.
what? I've got a few of your teammates coming on over the next week and a half. Each episode, as they say, who the team pest is, we'll find out if it's you.
Yeah, I have a feeling it will be. Sorry, I can just already see it coming.
No, that's fair. And before we get into the Fast Five, what are the current realities for the men's game? Because, as I said, it's self-funded mainly as well. So, yeah, what are
Mm.
the current realities like? Do you guys have a day job, and then you're going to netball and netball training, sort of thing, kind of similar to, believe it or not, I'm willing to equate it to the reverse of women trying to break into men's sport, sort of thing.
Yeah, it's very much like that, and especially at this place now, like we'd love to see a men's competition of like national competition of
Like
netball
super
sort of
netball sort of thing.
come to light. Yeah, like exactly, like an AFLW or a WBBL, like those things have taken off and they've been amazing. Like the
Yes,
way it's sort of been adopted by Australian society, and it's now a part of just sport in general. It's great, and yeah, like I think every single of the Australian players for the men's team has to have a job, and it's all self-funded and that sort of stuff. I think like bigger picture stuff. I mean, I think a men's World Cup would probably be the first step in terms of taking that that leap into like a worldwide or an Australian run competition where we can sort of bring out players from international and yeah, so sort of showcase the best of the best in the men's space.
I definitely agree with that. I'd even be willing to put men's netball at the Olympics, maybe.
Well, I think
Right?
netball. I think
Or
netball's
maybe
in
Com Games, even.
yeah com games. I think 2026 is probably like I think it's probably a little bit too close for men to sort of get the get the ability to play in that like
Yep.
in
Maybe the
Scotland
next
in
Com Games after that.
2026. Yeah, like I think obviously the Com Games at the moment, like with Victoria, like sort of letting go of it and then it being up in the air for so long, and now with Scotland now sort of having a very condensed version of it. I think it's at the moment just trying to figure out sort of where the Com Games is going to sort of place, but it's one of the biggest events for the women's space, every 4 years. So it's
Yeah.
we'd love to be a part of that at some point one day, but yeah, like let's just sort of at the moment just start at the grassroots and see
Yep.
where it can take us.
Yeah. Fair. Fair. Obviously, I was thinking big, but yeah, there's all those other
Yeah.
little steps you need to take first. So, fast
Oh
five
yeah.
questions: Apple or
Oh,
Android?
Apple.
Yep. Favorite movie of all time?
Oh, I reckon Interstellar would probably have to be up there. I think.
Yeah, that's a good film. How do you like your
Yeah.
steak?
Medium rare.
Very nice. What's your drink, or if you don't drink, beverage of choice?
I'm a bit of a Scotch man. I do
Okay.
enjoy a Scotch from
Scotch
time
on
to
the
time.
rocks or neat?
Neat.
Yeah, nice. Very
Yeah.
nice. What's your biggest pet peeve?
Just sporting or just anything in general?
You know what? Let's go both. What's your sporting pet peeve
Oh,
and what's your in general pet peeve?
sporting pet peeve. Oh, I think just like leaving rubbish or tape on your bench after games or trainings or something like that. Just like it's not that
Yeah.
hard to just pick it up and just go put it in the bin. Like leave it clean for the next person.
Yeah, definitely agree with that.
Um, Now
Absolutely.
outside of sport,
Yeah.
you know what really actually gets me is when
Mm.
people use toothpaste and they don't like close the lid properly, or like it's just all the toothpaste gets
It's
to the
and it's
top
just
of the
like a
lid and it
smidge
just
off.
it
Yeah.
honestly it is infuriating, and it's
Yeah.
like and then you squeeze it and the first pit's like really hard and yeah, no,
Yeah.
off that.
I also think because it circles back to that sporting one as well, it's just not that hard to close the lid of it properly.
Yeah,
Like
it's
it's
really not.
really not.
It's really not.
Yeah. And my final question for you is what's next for Liam Killey?
Well, I think for the next little while, I got made redundant like 3 weeks ago actually. So
Oh, I'm sorry.
when I was on tour, no, don't, it's silver linings. So I think what I'll do is I'll take the rest of the year. I'll do a bit of traveling. I think might head back to New Zealand and actually just be able to see some of it instead of just inside
Yeah.
of a hotel room and stadiums.
Yep.
And
Oh,
then
that brings up a question.
yeah,
Who is your hotel roommate of the team, or did you get your own rooms?
no. So we shared some accommodation, and then for the rest of it, we had our own room. So when we were the AIS for our game three in Canberra, obviously that's just single room dorms.
Yep.
In Wellington, I had my own bed, which was nice, my own room. And
So who
then
was
in
your
Auckland,
roommate?
I was sharing with Alistair Punchin,
Okay.
goal defence, who actually is a really good mate of mine. Who just lives around the corner from me, actually, funnily enough.
And who would
And
you hate to room with on a tour?
oh god, you really, I feel bad. Whoever I'm gonna say here is really gonna actually Dre. Draven. I'm sorry again, mate, to do that to you, but
Fair enough.
he's someone who will put his suitcase just on the floor, and then
Yep.
within a day, he won't have anything in the suitcase, but all his clothes just spread out
Oh,
everywhere.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, would
Gotcha.
drive me nuts.
That would absolutely drive me nuts too. I totally get you. And yeah, sorry. So yeah, what is next? So you're going to do some traveling?
Yeah, so probably just do a bit of travel, and then yeah, might have a couple of weeks up in Sydney, and then yeah, hopefully find a job by sort of mid Jan into Jan next year, and then but the training starts essentially next week for Victoria stuff again. So that
Oh,
tournament's
wow.
held
So
from
it's
the
back into it.
13th to the 19th. Yeah, straight back into it. So it's the 13th to the 19th of April in Melbourne this year.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so it'll be at the State Hockey Netball Centre. And that's obviously like all the Kelpies players will be back in their home states playing against each other. And, all the young juniors and up and comers that were in the Fast Five team, they'll be back in their home states. So it's normally a very competitive competition, which like I'm really looking forward to sort of getting back into and having, like some closer games and, playing against some of the best athletes and, best netballers, best athletes in the world.
And I like that little jab at New Zealand of having some closer games.
Ah, you got to stir the boys up every now and again. Like
Absolutely.
they're all such great lads. So it's yeah, it's a friendly jabs here and there.
Absolutely.